Welcome to the Cotton Club Radio. I'm your host, Cotton Club. Let me go ahead and put my water down. Tonight's conversation is going to be about Michael Jackson, family, and what I think about the MJ movie. I'm going to keep it funky with y'all, family. I know I look young, but I ain't no spring chicken. I grew up in the era of watching the Jackson 5 movie. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The American Dream. And I'm not trying to compare this movie to that, family, because there's no comparison. But when I look at the essence of the movie, what did it do? For anyone who knows Michael Jackson, who's been a fan of Michael Jackson, I have been a fan of Michael Jackson since I was a little kid. I was one of those kids, probably just like many of you, dancing, your family hyping you up, telling you to do the moonwalk, dress up like Michael Jackson, sing, all of that stuff. That was me. My sisters used to bring me to school and show off for their friends so I could sing Michael Jackson to their friends. I was one of those kids. I love Michael Jackson. This was Black Michael Jackson. Let me just be clear. And when I remember the change when he went from Black Michael Jackson to White Michael Jackson, my Aunt Linda, I was at her house one time and we were watching TV and YT Michael Jackson came on the screen and I didn't know who it was. And she said, and I knew exactly what that meant. But she still loved Michael Jackson. My family still loved Michael Jackson when he went through his transitions into YT-ness. We still loved and appreciate him. But one thing that was consistent about Michael Jackson, family, that I don't think the film did well with the Michael Jackson film. They painted Michael Jackson to be a timid, individual, shy, in which he was, many parts of him. But it made it seem like Michael Jackson was a pushover, and that he was a man with no backbone, and that he was a man you could control. They made him seem like a weirdo. He stayed to his room all the time, and Joe was this hovering guard or warden, who, stayed in the shadows. And whenever Mike made a move, he popped out. Hey, what you doing? Am I the only one who saw, the way that they portrayed Joe Jackson to be like this warden figure, instead of a father who understood the climate of the time, who understood that there were kids Michael Jackson's age who were being deleted in those Indiana streets. There were kids whose parents were crackheads and dope heads and couldn't afford to do nothing with them. So the kids was just out in the street, wandering around, being little street rats, getting into trouble, getting locked up. So Joe said, you know what? Those ain't gonna be my kids. Why couldn't he be that kind of guy? We all had a parent, an uncle, or aunt, somebody who was real strict. We all had an aunt, or uncle, or a grandma, or somebody who will pull you to the side and say, hey, come here, pull your pants up. Hey, come here, brush your hair. Hey, come here, don't cuss when you're around me. We've all had that, family. Tried to reconstruct Joe's character, not to be a father, family, a black father, but to be some kind of warden of the prison. And Michael was just a prisoner. Did we see what they did to Michael in that movie, family? How they tried to portray him to be this spineless individual. That's why that movie teed me off. Michael Jackson, many of you might not know. You couldn't just say go watch your highlights, because they got them all over Instagram. You can't scroll Instagram without seeing a clip of Michael Jackson. Peep the character and line it up with the movie, especially Black Michael Jackson and YT Michael Jackson. He wouldn't let nobody just talk so many kind of way too now. But there's many times, if you watch interviews, segments, Michael Jackson interacting with people, Mike was a sassy dude. He was the kind of guy that if you said something strange, he probably would just mute you and just look the other way. He was the kind of dude who was a real slick mouth kind of guy, real smart, real witty. He had that FBA wit where if you said something to him that he didn't really agree with, he would say something very witty to you. He wasn't the quiet type, family. I think the only part that really portrayed Mike in the right light, in my opinion, because all that shy stuff, Mike was shy. We all get it, But he wasn't spineless and boneless. And he wasn't just some little putty that you could control like the movie was trying to make it seem like. Mike was the kind of guy, you remember that scene And I hope there's no spoilers. I hope there's nobody in here who's, didn't see the movie. But the scene when he was in the boardroom and that YT dude, he looked at him, he said, I know you somewhere. You look familiar. And white dude was like, I don't know, not me. And Mike was like, I don't know. I think I know you. And the YT dude was like, no, I don't think I know you. And then Mike said, you know what? Everybody clear the room. I want to talk to this dude alone. And then he said, in few words or so, I want you to fire my dad. Can you do that for me? Could you get it done, YT man? That's the kind of Michael Jackson I know. On numerous occasions when he was being judged, a little strange stuff with children that we know he didn't do, Mike told the dude, the dude was like, well, do you allow children to sleep in your bed? And what did Mike say? I don't sleep with, listen, kids come over, we hang out, we go to sleep. I allow them to sleep in my bed. I sleep on the floor. What the kind of guy do you think I am? Listen, there are Jack the Rippers out here. There are people doing horrible things. I'm not one of those people. That's not a spineless dude. That's not a guy who can't articulate himself. That's not a guy who's so shy and so timid, who can't get his ideas out. That's a dude who can hold his own. All I'm saying is, fam, what this movie did to me is it put Michael Jackson in a box, and it put on that box quiet, timid, spineless. And Michael Jackson was boisterous, opinionated, commanded energy, was the type of person who would tell you, I don't think you're talking appropriately. Michael Jackson was multi-layered. So I have to say, when it comes to the eras that the movie portrayed, let's talk about the comparison. Let's talk about the American Dream and why I think that version, even though it was longer, it was a series. We all get that. And listen, I'm not saying the movie was the worst thing I've ever seen. All I'm telling you, family, is that when you sit back after you watch that, what do you see? What did you see? Because understand that when we watch things, our brains absorb two variations of consciousness. It's consciousness and pre-consciousness. On the conscious level, we didn't see nothing we ain't seen before. Huh? Are y'all hearing me? What did the movie show you that you didn't know about Michael Jackson? We all knew he had a rough childhood. I had a rough childhood. Many of you had a rough childhood. We all know he done took a few beatings. I took more beatings than I can count. And so did many of you. We all knew that Joe Jackson was very strict. My pops was strict too. My pops was the type of individual, if you got up in the morning and you didn't say good morning to him, and you say you were just going to the bathroom or you was just walking to go get a bowl of cereal, my pops would be downstairs because he like his quiet time early in the morning. He'd be reading the Bible. And I'll just tiptoe downstairs because I didn't want to make too much noise, because my pops was the kind of individual you didn't want to make too much noise around. And I'll be tiptoeing past him because I didn't want to interrupt him. You know, my pops would say, he never looked at me. You know what he would say? I didn't sleep with you last night. And I knew that meant good morning. Family, when you come from an FBA family, Joe Jackson's is damn near everybody's father. Come on now. That ain't, we didn't see nothing in this movie that we did not know on the conscious level. Now let's talk about the pre-conscious level. What did you learn about Michael Jackson? He was quiet, timid, shy, weird. And many of those things, let's be fair, there are variations of Michael. But Michael was a savvy businessman. Michael wasn't no dummy. Michael was very intelligent. You understand? He wasn't a man in a vacuum. He wasn't a man in a box like the movie tried to portray him. That's all I'm saying. And when we look at the American Dream, the Jackson 5 movie, and why I think that variation of Michael was more complex and more dynamic, was because it gave Michael space to develop and grow. And it didn't take variations of him and make that him. It gave you an understanding of this child growing into an adolescent, growing into teenager, growing into adult. It gave you, even though it was a series, so we got to see more. And I get it, the Michael Jackson movie is a movie. But when we look at the layers of Michael, what did we really see that we didn't know? Nothing. So I have to ask the question, family. Can this movie actually tell the truth? And they're talking about making a part 2. What's the point if you can't tell the truth? I want to know things about Michael Jackson that the public don't know. This movie can't tell that. Part 2, they can't talk about that. I want to get into the nitty gritty, family. Can we get into the nitty gritty? And this is the reason why this movie, okay, many of you saw it and many of you like it. I liked it. But do I want to see a part 2? I don't think so. Only on a few conditions. They better talk about that Sony. They better talk about that Sony deal. See, Mike wasn't as shy as you thought he was he? When he was talking to Paul McCartney about how much do you think the Beatles was worth? And Paul McCartney said, well, Mike said, well, how much would you, imagine it, just imagine, Paul, if you had to buy the Beatles catalog, how much would you say it was worth? And Paul said, I don't know, Mike, 60 million maybe? What did Mike do right after that conversation with Paul McCartney? He got on a damn phone and he bought the Beatles. That ain't no shy man. That man is strategic. And then what did he do after that? When he bought the Beatles catalog, what did he do, family? He went in and he was good friends with Paul McCartney. And Paul said, hey, Mike, what? I just heard that you bought the catalog. What's up, my guy? What's popping? You're gonna give me my publishing, right? And what did Mike say? This is business, not personal. That's not a guy who's lost within himself. That's not a dude who's so quiet that he can't think straight. That is a man with strategic values who understood he had a purpose and who understood that in his stardom, there are things that he could do and he needed to do it. What else did he do with that catalog? A few of those catalogs. When he purchased that catalog from Sony with all of those publishings of all of those great black artists. What did Michael Jackson do, family? He went and gave all that publishing back to all those black artists, knowing that those YT corporate businessmen had no intentions on doing that. But Mike said, you know what? My people have been scrutinized on levels beyond imagination. They have been raped and robbed on levels economically, socially, politically, that any man can imagine. I'm going to make sure they eat. So he started giving back publishing. And I'm going to keep it funky with y'all, family. I think this is the reason why. We all know what happened. They said that the catalog from Sony, when Mike purchased what he purchased, was worth a few $100 million or up there. But what they said that catalog was worth today, what, 26 billion? So we know that Michael was being strategic, he was being grounded, and he was looking in areas that most people wasn't looking. So when I look at Michael Jackson and the totality and why they had to provide framework around him that made his people want to separate from him so they could do what they wanted to do with him, I look at Michael Jackson as one of the most strategic, intelligent artists of all time. Totally opposite from what this movie wants to paint and give you a picture of who Michael Jackson was. So what do we do, family, with this information? So we have the movie. They're talking about a part 2. The movie was It wasn't better than American Dream. Don't care what none of you say. All that makeup Jafar put on was all right. The moves was good. The acting was good. But I'm going to tell you, family, the main character of this film was Joe Jackson. It was Joe Jackson, the Domingo dude. The main character was Joe Jackson. It wasn't even Michael. So that goes to show you that this film was already agenda-based. And it makes you wonder, if they did do a part 2, what the hell are they really going to talk about? We know about the accusations with the children. We know all of that was false. But if they're not going to talk about Comrade Murray, if they're not going to talk about that last interview where Mike said it's not the government, when he was saying that he was feeling threatened and he was feeling like somebody was going to put some bodily harm on him, he said it's not the government. He said it's bigger than that. Are they going to put that in the movie? No. So this is the reason why I subscribe with Janet Jackson, because she understood that this was a money grab, and she understood that they weren't going to tell the whole truth. And she understood that allowing her brother space to develop and grow in the minds and the imagination of the public is far better than putting a movie that you know they can't talk about what really happened, and you know they can't talk about what's really going on. They can't even talk about other people like, could we say Tommy Mottola? Who, what did MJ say? I mean, he called him a devil. They can't even bring his name up in the films because that's a defamation lawsuit. So if this film can't talk about people who were putting themselves in the way of the success of what MJ was really trying to do, then what story are they telling, and whose story is it? Because if Tommy Mottola isn't talked about, I don't know who's talked about. If Mike said during his last few days, if he said when he was feeling very, very uneasy and very anxious about his living situation, when he said it's not the government, it's something bigger, who the hell was he talking about, family? What was he talking about? And who was he talking about? And if they can't put that in the movie or any movie, or if they can't talk about that, then this ain't some movie I want to see. I know that many of you love the movie. It's all right. But what's one of the biggest takeaways that I'm hearing on these internet streets that I can't subscribe to ain't even really about the movie. It's about people now trying to hijack Michael Jackson's identity. I'm hearing a lot of people in the Latino community now coming out saying, trying to claim Jafar and say, this was a big win for the Latinos. And I'm scratching my head saying, what the hell are they talking about? Because Jafar's mother is Colombian, now the Colombians are coming out and saying Michael Jackson was Colombian. The idiocy, the tethering. Can we allow our great space to just be acknowledged and respected before people come and try to pillage this man's identity and legacy? The Colombians are coming out and saying Jafar is our guy and this is a win for Colombia. When does the tethering stop? When do people allow Black Americans to mourn our fallen soldiers and to just bask in the ambience of our culture and our icons without people from foreign countries or foreign backgrounds trying to claim them? When will that happen? It probably won't ever happen, because every time we say, here's our great, other folks step up and say, well, that's ours too. No, he ain't. No, he's not. Michael Jackson is ours.
The king. Look, look, look. Let your angel sing. I ain't twisted, this ain't the Henny talking for me. This is literally Malcolm Little talking through me. I ain't possessed, this is just when spirit meets the flesh, and a revolutionary is born, nothing less. It's hard for me to cope with stress, especially when I see the world much different from the rest. I can't sleep, nightmares, waking up, cold sweat, wondering if I ever made it, will they do me like the rest? It's for my black souls who really too upset to rest, so they wander through my dreams. Please tell me what this means.